So again, thank you for joining us on for what I hope for most of us is a fantastically beautiful fall day. We will be joined shortly by our two expert panelists for the seminar. They are very excited to share their knowledge and experience and expertise about the simple steps we can take to remain healthy and active while preventing falls. Wave and smile, Michelle and Kate, if you still have your camera on. So those are our panelists, which will be meeting more and speaking to us more in just a few moments. In the next 45 minutes or so, we're going to discuss why falls matter. Then Michelle is going to talk about why we fall, including how balance and recovery and those things kind of interact with each other. Then we're going to let our experts do a tag team, and Kate's going to take over for a few minutes. She's going to tell us the benefits of an evidence-based exercise program. And then she's going to talk us and walk us through actually a live demo where we can follow along on some simple exercises to do at home. And Michelle is going to be assisting her with that by doing all of the exercises from a seated position in case you have issues where it's not comfortable or safe, or if you're not able to stand. So that's where we'll be going in the next hour or so. And then we'll finish up, of course, with that Q&A. So be thinking about what you'd like to ask about furthering what they said or just clarifying something that you weren't quite clear of. Next slide, please, Marco. That's where we just get to say, ready? Then let's get to it. I am going to get us started. Because those of us who work to prevent falls know why we do it, why it's important. Most of us simply know that falling is never a good thing. What we need to do, no matter who we are, though, is realize that, what very few of us recognize, the impact that falls can have on families and communities and individuals. So we're going to start with a few insights on why falls matter and why we should care about reducing or eliminating them. Next slide, please, Marco. As we've said, we all know people fall. That's easy. We know that. We learn that the hard way when we're toddlers and we first start walking. And we fall, and it kind of becomes a bad thing from that point forward. The question now is, what is a fall? And so in the US, we want to know how often you think in the United States, because it's different around the world, but in the US, how often do you think a person who's considered older, 65 plus, goes to an emergency room, emergency department, or immediate care for injuries from a fall? So this one, you may want to think about that a little bit, but we'll take just about another 10 seconds or so. And then close it down. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And Marco, why don't you tell us what the people had to say?
So the question was, in the US, how frequently do you think a person aged 65 or older is treated in an emergency department or immediate care for injuries from a fall? And it looks like 11% of us said 10 to 50 times per day, 33% of us said every 15 minutes, 33% of us said every 18 seconds, and 22% of us said every 5 seconds.
All right, well, that's interesting. We got kind of an even balance with the first two. It was kind of hard to come up with the answers for this question because I know the answer, but I just wanted people to think about it. And unfortunately, the answer is that once every 18 seconds in the United States, somebody is brought to an emergency room or other facility for treatment for a fall. And that's just 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And that's where it really adds up to the millions of people that are seen. And remember, these are only the people that go to an emergency room. So it's obviously a lot more than that. So we're going to move on now to our next slide. And I guess we do need to identify what a fall is. You know, we just talked about injuries, but what exactly is a fall itself? People definitely have different ideas about that particular question. Unfortunately, many older adults tend to underplay or underreport their falls, even to their family members and best friends, because they don't want them to think that they can't be safe on their own, or that they need to be limited, or somehow you know, lose their independence, which is not a great thing. So for our definition, let's start off with kind of identifying what that is. And it is unintentionally moving downward, typically rapidly or freely without control, from a higher to a lower level. You're like, okay, wow, that sounds very technical, and it is. But first, we have to know that falls are unexpected. We don't expect a fall, or plan a fall, I should say, even though we may know just, you know, for that split second before, I can tell I'm going to fall. And that's where what we're talking about by moving and having flexibility and agility, that we actually can prevent falls. So our definition says that we don't plan on this to happen. We don't intend to end up wherever we did, which brings up the next part. It is downward, according to gravity. So we never fall up on planet Earth. That is not physically possible, I don't believe. So we're always falling down to a lower plane, or a lower level from where we started. In one way or another, we end up lower. And remember that lower does not necessarily mean on the ground or on the floor. That part's really important, because some people think, oh, well, as long as I didn't end up, you know, flat on the ground, it doesn't count as a fall. That is not true. It can be higher or lower. We can fall into a chair, we can fall into a table, we can even fall into a wall. The question is, did we start off, for example, standing upright, and we stumbled, trip, we are now maybe have our hands against a wall, and technically we are not on the ground, but we are definitely lower than we were before. And that kind of puts a different spin on what we think of as a fall. Between the unintentional and lower level parts, our definition also says without control. If we had control over it, it would have been called, you know, sitting or lying down. It's the uncontrolled part that actually all three of these that are really critical for our definition. Hopefully, using this definition, we can begin to kind of more clearly see when either we or those we care for have fallen, and get a clearer idea of what's going on. Being able to do so accurately is what allows us to know when we might need to look into why we're falling, especially if it's more often than it was before, and of course, get some remedies to those issues. Next slide, please, Marco. So we are investing an entire month in talking about preventing falls. Falls cause an incredible amount of emotional pain, disruption of people's lives, and you know, we do have to talk about the money. It's a huge, huge expense when we deal with falls, especially over the long term. There are a lot of statistics out there, but here are just a few to provide the basis for why we should care about falls. We start with, you know, again, for people age 65 plus, but remember that everybody falls. And so this really does start at a much younger age, and why we can all be aware earlier on to possibly prevent some of these things as well. So for people age 65 plus, what we know is that sorry for just a second, my brain went blank. So for people age 65, as we said, every 18 seconds, somebody's treated in the ER, but also every 35 minutes, a person dies from a fall. So it's not just about the injuries, the broken hips and things like that. We actually have people passing away at an early age because of injuries they got in a fall. 25% of people fall at least once a year. That's 1 in 4. So, they do that good old, look to your left, look to your right, who do you know in your family, et cetera. 1 in 4 will have a fall each year that results in an injury. That part's not on the slide, but that is not just a fall, but resulting in an injury that requires care. As we said the very beginning, it is the #1 cause of injury and death in people over age 65, and it's one of the top 5 for people of any age. So falls are important. Let's go to the next slide, please, Marco. And we can talk about our lovely state. I love living in Idaho. I have traveled the world, but this is where I want to live, and I've been saying that for many years. Idaho's on the top of many of the good lists, the good lists like what is the quality of life, safest place to live, green spaces, those kinds of things. Unfortunately, though, we are also on the top of a lot of some of the, I hate to say bad, but the not so good lists. One of those is that in Idaho, falls happen in 1 in 3 people, whereas the rate for the nation is 1 in 4. Now that doesn't sound like a lot when you say it that way, but it really is a difference between 25% and 33% of people who will fall and have an injury at least once a year in the 65 and older age group. And that's where it gets significant. If we tie that to the fact that Idaho is the 2nd fastest growing state in the nation as far as population, with a significant number of those new residents being of older age, we can see how falls and the risk of falls is not going to get smaller in Idaho, it's going to get bigger, except we have all of you here who are willing to start taking on reducing fall risk, which is just fantastic. That's exactly what we need. Next slide, please, Marco. I don't want to be the deliverer of just bad news, which it sounds like I've been doing for the last few minutes. Quite the opposite. I want to be good news. We're all here to prevent falls, and we can do so. That is truly the key. In technical terms, we call this primary prevention, which means we're preventing it from happening rather than treating it after it happens. And I think that's a really important thing to try to work towards, especially when it comes to falls, because the impact is so far reaching. We believe all falls are preventable if we know how to assess our risk and then the strategies we can have to prevent them. So as our kind of last part of that, before I turn it over to our experts, next slide, please, Marco. You just heard me say that knowing our fall risk is an important step. We can do that easily by answering 12 quick yes/no questions on an online survey that NCOA has created for us. It will give us a fall risk score immediately and then email a report that gives us that information along with some recommendations and follow-up links that we can use to reduce our fall risk. It's fast, it's free, it's easy. It doesn't cost anything and it's available to everybody. So it really is a great tool to get you started on understanding what your fall risk or the fall risk of others might be. Next slide, please, Marco. Oh, now I'm going to take just a second to take a deep breath myself. And now that we're kind of aware of the impact of falls, let's get to how we're going to prevent those falls. To do that, I'm pleased to introduce you to Michelle Butterfield. She has been working several years with Southeast Idaho Public Health, where in her capacity as an education specialist senior, working with a lot of different programs, she is going to share a wealth of information that she has about falls and falls prevention. So Michelle, are you ready to take it away, Michelle?
I am, Erin. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. So just all the information that Erin's already talked about with falls is that falls are definitely prevented. So we can go ahead and move on to the next slide to discuss the reasons why falls do occur. All right, so some things to consider is that some reasons why falls do occur is that individuals could have sensory or physical impairments, things that affect their vision, hearing, touch, mobility issues. If people have some chronic conditions that cause them to have more falls, people that have Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's, multiple arthritis, heart problems, and just taking different medications. A lot of things can contribute to some of their unsteadiness that can cause them to fall. Medications, individuals that are poorly hydrated, their nutrition isn't where it needs to be, those can definitely affect falls. Certain clothing, environmental factors, different services, lighting, if there's moisture on the ground that we don't see, that there's spills that haven't been wiped up, furniture, stairs that are in disrepair. So we will focus on the positive aspect of being physically active and how we can prevent falls. Next slide, please. All right, so some of the statistics that Erin did talk about is that people are experiencing a fall every 18 seconds and going into the ERs or immediate care facilities. So fall death rates in the US increased by 30% from 2007 to 2016. So in looking on this graph, falls are definitely going up. But this is something that we can definitely prevent. And the main thing is really staying mobile, staying physically active, and really paying attention to our surroundings. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so here's another question before we go into the next discussion. So we'll go ahead and show this question and have you take a couple seconds to answer. So next slide. All right, so this question is asking why we fall. So which risk factors may add to your risk of falling? And you'll need to choose all that apply. So go ahead and submit your answers there. Okay, we'll see what the answers are there. It looks like we have somebody that's not able to select. Oh, it won't let them select more than one answer. So maybe that poll question was set up where they could only do one. So I don't know what's
my fault. Then I apologize for that. So let's,
yeah, so it looks like we're not
select the most common reason. How about that?
Okay, perfect. We'll just do the most common reason. All of these do affect falls.
Or actually, Marco and Michelle, why don't we just go ahead and move on through this because you're going to talk about it anyway.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it anyway. So just kind of maybe in your mind, choose all that apply. We don't need to visually see it, but you would have in your mind. Okay, next slide. Okay, so balance and recovery physiology. So balance definitely does affect our falls. And like I said, if there's individuals that are taking medications, you have inner ear infections, head injuries, individuals that have hypotension, which is the low blood pressure, where if they stand up too quickly, you can experience some dizziness. All right, so we'll move to the next slide. So falls in healthcare facilities can be expensive, dangerous, and deadly. Here's just some more statistics. As far as 11,000 fatal falls occur each year in hospitals. So really when you're at a healthcare facility, you really don't think you'd expect a fall when you are there at a facility, but it does happen. I just thought this was a good visual of showing the cycle of how expensive falls can be and very fatal. All right, next slide. So this is moving on to the fall cycle. Is somebody can experience a fall, and what they naturally tend to do is they will become less active, which is a fall risk in itself. And that that causes decreased muscle strength and balance. Somebody that has a fall will experience having the feel of falling again. So there's that fear factor in there. And then with them having that fear of falling again, it increases their risk of falling. So this just kind of keeps going on and on. If you are somebody that you know has experienced this is really typically what happens. And we want to break this cycle. And that's what we're going to talk about, how we can break the cycle of falls. All right, next slide, please. So how falls affect the body, and just tying it back into the balance factor. So poor balance is a significant risk for falls in older adults. Somebody loses their balance, they step out, they're not strong enough to hold themselves up. Their walking is affected, getting up out of a chair affected. So balance requires sensory information that requires your body's position in relation to your surroundings. Balance requires the ability to generate appropriate motor responses to control body movement. Balance is super important. And as we age, progressive loss of sensory, motor, and central processing system functions can decrease. And then as we age, it's an increased likelihood of falls. It's not the natural progression of aging, but unfortunately, as people age, their balance is affected, and that's a risk factor for experiencing a fall. Okay, next slide. Here are some simple steps that we can do to reduce falls. Perform regular exercises that promote strength and balance. Engage in activities that maximize foot and ankle stability. And I put in parentheses there are lateral movements. So some of the exercises that we'll be doing here later in this presentation, but stepping side to side. When we walk, we're in a forward motion, but being able to practice those lateral movements as well to keep the foot, the ankle stable, also in our hips. We really want to focus on functional fitness, meaning what are the activities that we're doing in our day that are going to help us function throughout our day. We're putting groceries away. We're getting out of the car. We're getting in and out of the bathtub. We're stepping over things. We're going up the stairs. So what are exercises that we can do to help us strengthen our muscles to perform everything that we want to do in our day? And then we also want to reduce our motor impairment. These little visuals that I have here are just basically work to make your home safer, keep up with your vision and your regular health checks with your providers, review your medications regularly, and then also stay active and get movement throughout your day. Okay, next slide. All right, we have another poll question. So let's see what this question is.
Actually, I think let's go ahead and skip the question so that we can make sure that we have plenty of time for the demo. So
okay.
Sorry to
that's okay.
cut you off there, Michelle. Marco,
that's okay.
If you can go to the next slide, please. All righty. And, now that we're aware of the impact that falls can have, let's get to learning how to prevent them. This is the fun part. To do that, I'm pleased to introduce you to Kate Wilson. She is part of the Public Health Idaho team up in North Central Idaho. And Kate's an LPN and has dedicated a lot of her life to public health. She is an education specialist and currently acts as a fit and fall-proof coordinator. Kate is going to tell us how evidence-based programs can play an important part in falls prevention. So Kate, I'll let you take away with your first part of your presentation.
Thank you, Erin. As Erin said, I'm in the North Central District of Idaho, and that means I'm in our main office in Lewiston today. So thank you for having me. Marco, next slide, please. One of the ways we can prevent falls, as Michelle mentioned, is to participate in exercise, particularly exercise that's focused on points like mobility, strength building, balance, and that's where we come into with Fit and Fall Proof. believe our slides are maybe reversed here. Can you check the next slide, Marco, please? Yes, okay, so we'll cover this and then we'll go back. Fit and Fall Proof is a statewide program in Idaho. And so that means you can find it all over the state. Before COVID, we had over 125 sites where you could find us. That is very fluid right now. Some have had to close and some are, resume and close again. So something important to reach out to your coordinators to find out what's near you. We were developed in 2004, so we've been going strong for 17 years. That is something in and of itself, I think, speaks to the program. As Michelle said, it focuses on functional exercises. So we're considering our activities of daily living here, stepping over the bathtub, pulling our shirt up and over our head, things like that are addressed in the class. Each class is intended for individuals 60 or older, and they meet 2 to 3 times a week for 45 to 60 minutes. And our sessions run 10 weeks at a time. And these numbers are come up with by Boise State University and the professors who developed the curriculum, showing that these numbers show us that the program is affecting change with these time parameters. We do perform a timed up and go test, as you see on the screen there. And that is, it's done at the start and end of a 10-week session. It is a really great and easy way to measure mobility, strength, and agility or balance. So a person will be required to get up out of a chair, walk 8 feet around a cone, and return to a seated position. And it is a timed test. If we think about all of the things that requires, it requires strength to get up and out of our chair and agility to maneuver around the cone. And then it also involves our gait or our walking speed. So these can be great things, a great place to start when we're looking at a person's ability or possibly a risk for a fall. While there's no standardized tug score cutoff point to predict falls, we can say about 13 to 14 seconds has been identified as the point where a fall risk increases, and around 8 seconds as the optimal point to effectively screen adults, older adults at risk for frailty or at risk for falling. So those are some numbers, so to kind of keep in mind. And we'll go back to the previous slide, please, Marco. So if you were to join a Fit and Fall Proof group, how could it help you? Our class leaders are trained to plug those points of posture checks in there. So I've had people say that they have attended Fit and Fall Proof classes and they find themselves throughout their own day away from class. Oh, am I walking tall? Things like that. So things that you end up integrating into your own day. We do use resistance bands to increase strength, also do some exercises with our own body weight to increase strength. We're focusing on a faster reaction time, and sometimes that means that we're pulling out little lightweight balls like this one. Anytime that these come out in class, I think I see smile or smiles on people's faces because it's just something fun, and it requires our coordination to maneuver hand to hand or be dribbling. And that definitely increases our faster reaction time. Some will say when playing with grandkids. Improved walking speed. We do have time for mobility during classes. We hope that we can reduce the fear of falling. Sometimes we are able to go out to those classes and talk about what do you do when you fall and how do you get up from a fall. So that education is something integrated into the program. We have We hope we're enhancing people's physical activity and expanding their confidence because they recognize their ability to do more. And I would say at least half of people end up saying that they attend or they enjoy the class because of the social interaction. So the mental health piece really plays a role in our classes. So we'll go 2 slides, please, Marco.
You know, Kate, I'm always impressed by how much really goes into what a lot of people think is just a simple exercise class. But as you mentioned, it's developed and designed with all of these things built in, which address these, which is fantastic. I think what we might do is skip the success stories. People will get those as part of their copies. But let's go ahead and move on and get started with our next section.
Okay.
So Marco, go ahead and do.
Are we ready for the interactive demo then?
I believe so. Next slide, please, Marco. And I know I'm cutting out some of your info. Next slide, Marco. There we go. Because this is really kind of the fun, energetic part of it all. What Michelle and Kate are now going to do is take us through an interactive demo. What that means is you are going to be able to follow along as Kate demonstrates some of the things that she just talked about that happen in Fit and Fall Proof and other evidence-based exercise classes. And Michelle is going to be doing the same things, but she's going to be showing how they can be done from a seated position or from in a chair. So Marco, let's move on one more and one more again. And hopefully I've given Michelle and Kate some time to get themselves situated. Kate, are you able to do this slide or do you want me to do it? I'm not sure if she's in a position where she can see her screen. So we just want to, excuse me, talk about in this slide that, you know, it's okay and good to be prepared, but be prepared rather than scared. And what that means is when you go to exercise, do things like making sure that you have the proper footwear and that your situation is safe, but also, especially if you're by yourself, that you have a telephone nearby or a person that's nearby. So if for some reason you fall and can't get up, to quote a well-known commercial, that you can reach out and have somebody assist you. So next slide, please, Marco. We are ready to turn it back over to Kate, who's going to take us through these exercises. Please feel free and do follow along if you are able. Go ahead, yes. Kate. I'm really excited to hear this part.
All right, so please go ahead and get up. If you prefer to do the exercises seated, you can look at Michelle and maybe pin her on your screen to see how she's doing things. We are starting with side-to-side stepping. That's our home base. So left to right, and repeat your steps here. If I get taken away or distracted, we use home base for participants to come back to, so we stay moving the entire class. So if you don't hear a direction from me, you're doing side-to-side stepping home base. For our warm-up begin, we're going to use our numbers game. This lets us go through a little bit of brain challenge. So it may not be as much of a challenge today for you all because you have things listed in front of you, but we will start with little steps. So a forward motion, little steps, and we're doing shoulder circles at the same time. This is number 1 in our numbers game. From here, we'll move to number 2, which is a standing march with our arms. So knees are coming up to hip height, if you can get them there. If not, that's okay. Do what you can do. Our arms are swinging in a bent fashion. This is number 2. From here, we'll move to drum major, number 3. So our arms are instead coming out to the side. Our right knee lifts and our right arm is out straight, other arm is bent, and we switch. Drum major. Number 3. Number 4 will be dolphin dives. So our hands will come down in front of us, doing little steps with our feet. Fingers back towards our face and over a hill. And just repeat the motion over and over. Hands down, fingers back towards your face, over the hill. Dolphin dives, number 4. Number 5 is going to get our thighs warmed up a bit. It's the sumo. So we're coming into a partial squat. Knees do not go past toes. Partial squat, lift your right leg up and over to a 45-degree angle to the side. Then the same on your left. Arms are out in front of you or wherever is comfortable. As you step to the right, partial squat, left, partial squat. This is number 5, the sumo. Now for the numbers game, we would then take people through by number only, not the name. So I would say, let's do number 1. What was that? And I would wait until someone could show me. That was little step with shoulder circles. And if you can remember which way you rolled your shoulders last time, roll them the other way this time. What was number 2? That was a standing march with our arms. Pulling our belly button into our spine, keeping our pants loose. What was number 3? The drum major. Knee raises, opposite arm comes to your chest. One arm is bent, one arm is straight. What was number 4? Little steps and dolphin dives. Very good. And what was number 5? Partial squat for our sumo, to the right and to the left. Keeping our chest lifted while we do this. Very good. Now, normally we would, let's go to side stepping. Normally we would go back through these in a random order by number to try to get our brain involved even more. And today, for the sake of time, I think we'll move on to the next slide, please. We're going to be doing some heel and toe walking. So if we want to focus on feeling our feet, we will pull our toes up and take little steps on our heels. If we weren't in a stationary position, we could do this around a room. And then we would switch to do the same on our toes. So if you need to be holding onto a chair, get as high up on your toes as you can and take little steps. Back down to heels. And try to feel different parts of your heel. The inside, the center, and the outside. Back up to toes. Little steps. Do the same thing. Feel your big toes, your middle toes, your pinky toes. Good job. The next exercise we'll do is a tightrope. So we can try tandem. If we don't want to do heel to toe, you will have your feet straddling a line and walk the line forward. And then you can check around you and try backward. If you feel comfortable, you can turn that into a tightrope walk, heel to toe. Now you might want your hands over your chest You might want them out to the side. You're bringing your heel in front of your toe and taking forward steps. When you've gone as far as your space allows, check behind you. And if you feel comfortable, you can try backwards toe to heel. If you would like to do this next to a chair, you can get a couple steps in around the chair. All right, Marco, next slide, please. We're going to do a hip lift. Very important to keep the hips mobile. So next to a chair, we're going to do just a slight motion. And I'll get a little closer here so you can see. You're just lifting your hip about 2 inches off the ground. Up, and your foot is flat on the bottom. Just hike that hip up on the left side. Really push that standing leg into the ground. Let's go around to our other side of our chair if we're using one and make sure we don't ignore the right side. Hip lift. All right. Let's do the side to side tick-tock. So we've got our arms out to the side, feet are shoulder width apart, and we're just going to lean onto our right foot, lifting our left one up, and hold. Is your chest proud? Is your belly button pulled to your spine? Now lean and shift to the left leg, raising the right leg up. Looking ahead of us. We're holding for a few seconds and returning to the right. Tick-tock left and right at your own pace. Requires a bit of steady balance. Very good. Let's move into the slap and tap. So we're next to our chair. We're going to put our left foot behind us, right arm extended forward about 45 degrees in front of us. Let's bring that knee up to our hip height and tap the knee with our arm or our hand. Bring them back together right at your hip level. And let's do a few of these. Our chest stays lifted. We're looking ahead. We can feel the right leg being nice and warm now. And let's switch, not ignoring our right leg. Arm extended, right foot back. Bring them together at hip height. Okay, we're going to move from here to step around the clock. This is nice because you can get a little bit playful with it. We'll take our left foot and we'll start easy at noon, 9, and 6. Noon, 9, 6. The goal being that we want to keep our chest upright as we have a limb moving at the positions I'm calling around us. You can get playful and start to say, oh, 11 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And we'll move over to the right side. At noon, 3 and 6. Continue that way with your leg at noon, 3 and 6. Just a little toe tap out to the side. And then let's try 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 2, 5, 4, noon, and 6. Great job. One of the exercises that is probably the least favorite is our chair stands, but it's so good for us. We can fit it into many parts of our day. We're going to make this the clapper. So when we are seated in our chair that has no wheels, we're going to clap above our head, and then we stand to clap behind our hips. Returning to our seated position, we clap above our head and then behind as we stand. If a chair stand is difficult, we can be here and just working on a little rock. Maybe this is what we're doing. Maybe we're working to hold it right here. As much as we can do. That's what we want. Great job. One more. And we're in a standing position now. From here, let's take it into ta-da. So our right foot goes out to the side at a 45-degree angle. Right arm, reach up and really drive those hips to the right. And then come back to center. Do it to the left. So left foot comes out to the left at a 45-degree angle. Left arm up. Turn our hips to the left. Back to center. Really use this to open up right through here. Your ribs stretching. Use your hips to guide the motion. All right, one more to each side. We're going to try our balance here with what you may have heard used in yoga called the tree pose. So if you would like an introductory stance, place your foot at your ankle height and balance on your right leg, bringing your arms or your hands together in either in front of your chest, or you can take it above your head, holding balance on single leg. If you prefer, I'll show you the next level up on our other side, or you can hold it at that ankle level. So here is our tree pose, and you can bring the foot just below the knee if you prefer a little more challenge.
You know, I think Kate and Michelle have done a fantastic job of showing us these simple moves that we all can do right from home, standing or sitting. And I know that you had kind of the cool down with some breathing and things left to do, Kate, but I'm just thrilled because those are things that I'm thinking, you know, I can even do those a couple of times during my workday, even from my chair. So it's all really good. Marco, could you go ahead and take us past the next question? We're going to skip that one. Because we want to, of course, honor everybody's time. What that question was about is making the commitment to yourself to do these things. You know, can I do them? And if so, when can I do them? It's better to set a time, because I know for myself, if I always say, well, I'll do it later never comes. So it's easier to say, you know what, every day when I get up, I'm going to do these, or every day before I eat dinner. So with that said, I want to give just a little bit of time for any Q&A that you may have had. Laura has been collecting that in the chat. If you haven't asked a question, but you have one, please put it into the chat now. You can do that by clicking or tapping on the chat option, which is on kind of the middle bottom of a regular computer screen. I can't remember exactly where it is on a smartphone. Or you can press Alt-H to display the window. So Laura, how are we doing with questions?
We've got a couple. The first one, I believe, was to you, Erin. It was from Deb Ryland, and she asked, how long will information be available on the website?
The information will be available on the website indefinitely. We're trying to build it as kind of an archive and a library of things. So we're trying to get some of the video stuff cleaned up and put together. So like I said, at the end of the week, that should all be there, and we will be sending out an email to let everybody know when that's available.
All right, and the second question, I believe, was to Kate Wilson. It was from Linda, and they asked, are there any online options to attend fit and fall proof classes?
That's a great question. It's been something in discussion. And I did offer one class last fall as an online option, kind of a pilot, if you will. To my knowledge, I don't think that there are others in operation at this time, but it's definitely a discussion point. Maybe Michelle, you can speak to whether or not that's in your area as well.
All right, and I believe on that same note, Deb asked if there's a way to view videos of fit and fall proof that can be seen by folks in another state.
And we'll put some of that information into the resource guide on the website as well, so it's a little easier to find.
There is a home workout, so it would be a one workout routine that someone could use. It's available on YouTube. So if you search for fit and fall proof workout, it may say 2016 on it as well. That's available on YouTube for people out of state working from home.
Perfect. Did we have any other questions, Laura?
Let's see. No, I believe that was it.
All right, then Marco, let's move to our next slide. And this is a poll I do want to take because it kind of tells us how we're doing. The question is, compared to when the webinar started, how much do you think you now know about the relationship between exercise and falls? So we'll go ahead and again give just a few seconds for this, and then we will finish up. I think a lot of people, like we started off at the beginning, you know, they know what a fall is, they think. So maybe we've changed your definition, and also know that we don't want to have them, but kind of putting together some of the things that Michelle and Kate were able to tell us and to show us is really the key to understanding it. So Marco, why don't you go ahead and close that out and give us the results real quick, and we will get finished up.
So the question was, compared to when the seminar started, how much do you feel you understand about how physical activity reduces your risk of falling? And it looks like 11% of us said, I learned a few things. Another 11% said, I learned several things. Another 11% said, I now understand how being active reduces falls. And 67% stated, I understand the relationship and I am motivated to move.
Those are excellent answers. And I always like to say, you know, there generally aren't a lot of right and wrong answers. The best answer right now is that you know more than you did an hour ago, but especially for those that answered that last option, that's really fantastic. That's where we want everybody to get. So next slide, please, Marco. All right, we have been talking about those classes that are designed specifically to meet the combined need of not just fitness, but also falls prevention. And of course, Fit and Fall Proof is the one that was started by our own health department, and that Kate and Michelle promote themselves. So that's fantastic. It's available statewide. But I do have to say that for the ICOA's Area 4, which is South Central Idaho, they also provided a different program, Over 60 and Feeling Fit. And so we're giving you the information for both of those. The best way to get in touch with Fit and Fall is to go to your local health district's website, and they will have things like the specific schedules for your area there. So we had some questions about that. We will also, of course, have that in the resource guide when we get that out to you all. So don't worry about trying to write all of that down. We're ready to go to our next slide. The ICOA Falls Prevention web page, like we've been saying, has all of these additional resources, not just the recording from today's seminar and the slides, but also the resource guide. And it has a bunch of extra articles and links. So be sure you go there. If you don't have it, you will, because we will get it sent off to you. And it really can be an ongoing source of information throughout the year even. With that said, we'll go to the next slide. And just know that 2021, unfortunately or fortunately, our falls prevention campaign at least ends the end of this week. But we are really working on making it a year-round program where we provide other kinds of information. So please go back, review some of the other 3 seminars that we provided this year, and also kind of check back on that website every once in a while, as we may be offering new seminars and new information as well. Next slide, Marco. And this is the one that's easy. This is where I just get to say a huge, huge thank you to all of you that were here. We couldn't do it without any of these elements, kind of like that 3-legged stool thing. For those of you who are attending, thank you again for your time, and we hope that you have learned a lot of things about how to take simple steps to prevent falls. I also, of course, have to thank our expert panelists, Michelle and Kate, for sharing their expertise and their willingness to do a live demo. A lot of people don't like to do that. That was fantastic. I loved it. And finally, to our Zoombies, as I like to call them, we have Marco Antonio and Laura, who are both actually from our Area 2 up in North Central Idaho, that did a fabulous job of facilitating running Zoom and doing all of that behind the scenes stuff. So thank you all. We appreciate it. We hope that you continue to have a falls-free fall and beyond. And we'll see you either on additional seminars or certainly next September for the next Falls Prevention Awareness Month. Thank you all and have a fantastic day.